Okay, here we are going through the Module 1 notes. I've already shown you how to run Jupyter Notebooks in Colab, so we're going to ignore this particular slide. And we're going to talk about strings. Strings are anything enclosed in quote marks. You could use either a single quote mark or double quote mark. But if you begin with one, you've got to end with the same type of quote mark. So you've got two types of quote marks, single quotes and double quotes. And if you have a string inside a string, the string that's inside the string has to use the opposite style of quote mark from whatever you were using to define the string itself. Here's an example. S equal, this is a string. S1 with single quotes, this is also a string. S2, this string includes a quote inside a string. Note how that the outer quote begins with single quotes, or single quote and ends with a single quote, and the internal string, the included string, uses double quotes. And I look at all these things and I see what I've got. Print S, print S1, print S2, and you see that the quote within the string shows its quote marks. Okay, so now we come to the first pause point, and it's really important that you hit the pause and actually create a simple example like this for yourself. It is always important that you learn with your fingers. Only after you've typed something is it really included in your brain. Okay, so stop the video and make your own example illustrating the points that I've just made. Okay, you're back. So let's go on. I want to talk now about the print function. The default behavior of the print function is that it prints whatever you ask it to print, and then at the end it will skip down to the next line so that a subsequent print would appear on the following line, not the same line. And this is because there's a new line character automatically inserted at the end of every thing that print does. And you can override the new line option with an end equal anything. And I'm going to show you some of the anythings that you might use. Here's an example where the anything is what I call an empty string. It's two quote marks together. There's nothing between these two quote marks, so the string is completely empty. And it is what defines the end argument. So if I print S and then print S1, I get S ends right here, and then S1, instead of being on the following line, because the end argument was specified as an empty string, it just begins right here, jammed together. This is something that you really didn't want. Okay. This is better. The end argument was specified as a quote blank quote. This is different from an empty string. It's a string which just includes a single blank mark. And then you print S1, and it did not go down to the next line because the new line option has been overridden. But here's the result of the end equal quote blank quote. It's this empty string that is right here. Okay? And just to show you what I really mean by when I say anything, it could be anything. So in this case, I've selected the end argument to be blank space, capital END, blank space. And you can see the result of that when I printed S and then S1. At the end of S, it printed blank space, END, blank space. And then there's no new line, so it just goes to this is also a string. Okay, so again, it is time for you to pause this video and make up a couple examples of your own. Okay, pause the video, probably take you about five minutes or so to do this, but it's really important that you cement your knowledge by actually working through it yourself. You only learn when your fingers are moving. Okay, you're back. Let's go on. So far, we've only had one argument in a print statement, other than the and equal option. Yeah, but you can have multiple arguments in a call to print. They're separated by commas. Print will insert a single blank space between them in the output. And here's the way that would work. Here's a fairly complicated example. I set the numeric variable wage to 20, the numeric variable hours to 40. Then I got a couple strings here. Your wage rate is and your hours worked are. And then I compute earnings, which is wage times hours. And I created a string E, your earnings are. And I created a string P, which is just a period. Then here are the multiple arguments. This thing has 3 arguments, not just one. W, comma, wage, comma, P. And as described above, what happens is that the print statement inserts a single blank space between any two. So here's the first thing, your wage rate is. Then there's a single blank space. Then there's the 20, the wage value. Then there's a single blank space. And then there's a period. And we do the same thing with hours worked and earnings. Okay? So that's not exactly what I would like to see. What I'd really like to see, of course, is that the period would immediately follow the number. So I want you to fix that. You need to just fix it with one of the 3, not all 4. Not all 3. Okay, let me go back and look at that. And I want you to revise this code, for instance, so that instead of 20 blank space period, I get 20 period. Okay? And I suspect this will take you about 5 minutes to do it. So again, pause the video and do it with your fingers. Make sure that you're actually learning something, not just watching something. And I'll start again after you've done it. Well, you'll restart after you've done it. Okay, you're back. Here's a solution. The first thing, we only had 2 things instead of 3, 2 arguments instead of 3, and then we had the end is an empty string, so there will be no blank space. Then in a subsequent print statement, not the third argument to the first print statement, but a subsequent print, we have print P. And that means that because the end was an empty string, that you get nothing between the 20 and the period. Okay? So let's go on. So I want you to think about how to use one print statement to print the letters A, B, and C on 3 separate lines. Okay, again, stop the video. Do this, then restart the video. Okay, you're back, and here's the trick. There's only one string. It's A \n, B \n, C. And I get A, B, and C on 3 separate lines. So here's a good little problem, an exercise. I want you to write a program which does the following. It asks for the name of a person's pet, then you obtain the answer, and then you print the name of the pet with a comment of some kind. Don't really care much what the comment is, just print the name of the pet and something else to make sense when you're talking about the pet. Okay? And I think this is about a 5-minute exercise, so go ahead and do that. Pause the video. Remember to pause the video. Actually do it, then look at my solution. Okay, you're back. Let's go on. So I did this with a print statement. I print, what is your pet's name? That's the string. And the end is a string with just a single blank space. Then I get the pet name. Pet underscore name is input. And apparently the user in this case responded with the name Fido. And I print, hi there, comma, pet underscore name. And what we see is hi there, comma, Fido. Okay. Okay, slightly different option. Let's go on. I want you to write a program to do the following. Request an integer. Multiply the integer by 2, and then print the result. So this is another roughly 5-minute exercise, and you need to stop the video, do the exercise, then take a look at my solution. Okay, you're back. Let's take a look. So the string equal input giving integer. Note that I didn't use a separate print statement to give the message give me an integer. It is an argument of the input function. That sort of simplifies things a little bit. Now, the problem that you've got to deal with is that the input function produces a string. So what came back from this, let's say the user apparently entered the value 5, but if you didn't do something, that value 5 would be quote 5 quote, not the integer 5. To make it into an integer, you have to use the int function and apply it to the string. Then, of course, you compute result is 2 times the integer, and print the result is, comma, result, and the result is 10. Okay. So let's talk about errors. There are 3 kinds of error. The first type of error is a syntax error. The second type is a runtime, and the third type is a logic error. Syntax and runtimes are they're annoying, but they're reasonably easy to deal with because Python will bark at you, and you'll realize that things did not go well, and you have to fix them. Let's look at the way these could occur. Let's look at a syntax error. You remember back in grade school when the way you said multiply was a capital X, and you always said times, wage times hours. Of course, legitimate Python syntax requires that this symbol be an asterisk instead of an X. So immediately the Python interpreter spots this and says, no, you can't do that. And you get the message invalid syntax, and it's pointing here at the offending thing. Okay. Let's look at a runtime error. x is the string 3, not the number 3, y equal x plus 2. So what you're trying to do here is you're trying to use addition to add a string and an integer, and you can't do that. Now this could have been, this is perfectly legitimate syntax. The syntax is okay here. The syntax is fine here. The syntax is fine here. But when you try to execute it, it fails. That's a runtime error. The third type of error is a logic error. And a logic error is where you do something that does not cause a syntax error, does not cause a runtime error, but it is in fact wrong in the real world. And an example of doing something wrong is calculating earnings as wage plus hours instead of wage times hours. Python does not bark at you. It doesn't say anything bad. It's just up to you to check your work and make sure that what you did made sense. Okay. Python is not Excel. And here's the question: what will the following code print? I set x equal to the value 2. I set y equal to the value 3 times x, which would be 6. Then I print y. Then I set x equal to 3, and then I print y again. So if your mind was, if you've developed an intuition for the way things work based on Excel, you might think that this establishes a permanent relationship between the value of x and the value of y, so that whenever you change the value of x, you would automatically change the value of y. This is not a permanent relationship. It is simply something that was done at a point in time and not undone. Okay? What happens? Both the first print y and the second print y print 6. Changing the value of x after you'd used it to create y does not have any impact on the value of y. Okay? So that is everything for this particular module.